Hello, my dear friend. Today I'm sharing a story about a relationship that explores the challenges of being in a marriage where one partner, the husband, isn't living up to the expectations of being a supportive and understanding partner. Before we dive into the story, let me fully explain the concept. Marriage can be one of the most rewarding yet complex experiences in life. It's about partnership, understanding, love, and mutual respect. But when one side of this relationship becomes selfish, neglectful, or hurtful, the balance begins to crumble. This story revolves around such a dynamic. It's a tale of a wife who struggles to maintain her sense of self and dignity while living with a husband who has let the relationship down. The husband in this story often fails to communicate properly, ignores his wife's emotional needs, and exhibits behaviors that show a lack of respect. These actions take a toll on the wife, but this is also a journey of personal growth. As we unfold the story, we will witness moments of reflection, frustration, and possibly redemption. Now, let's move forward into the story. Hey, Sarah. I have to tell you about something that's been weighing on my mind, said Lily, sitting across from her best friend at their favorite cafe. Her voice was soft but tinged with the weariness of a heart that had been carrying a heavy load for far too long. Sarah took a sip of her coffee, her eyes studying Lily's face. She had known her friend long enough to see the signs of emotional exhaustion. I'm here, Lily. You can talk to me about anything. Lily sighed, playing with the edge of her napkin. It's about my marriage. About John. I don't even know where to start. It's like I feel invisible at home. Sarah furrowed her brow. What do you mean? I thought things were okay between you two. That's what everyone thinks, Lily began, her eyes clouding with frustration. We look like the perfect couple on the outside. We smile for the photos, go to dinners with friends, and attend family gatherings, but when it's just the two of us, it's different. Sarah nodded, leaning in as if to physically close the emotional distance between them. How is it different? Lily paused, gathering her thoughts. She didn't want to dump everything at once, but she knew Sarah would understand. It's like I'm living with a stranger. We barely talk anymore. When I try to bring up how I feel, he brushes it off or turns it into a joke. I know relationships go through rough patches, but this feels heavier, like he's not even trying to be present. Sarah frowned. Has it been like this for a while? It started small, you know. He'd come home late from work without telling me, and I thought, okay, he's busy. But then it became a habit. He stopped asking me how my day was, stopped noticing the little things, like when I got my hair cut or when I'm feeling down. It's like he doesn't see me anymore, Sarah. I feel like I'm fading into the background. That's awful, Lily. Have you told him how you feel? Maybe he doesn't realize it's affecting you this much. Lily nodded, biting her lip. I've tried, but every time I do, he gets defensive. It's either I'm too sensitive or I'm overreacting. Sometimes he even makes me feel guilty, like I'm the one asking for too much. It's gotten to the point where I don't even know how to approach him without it turning into an argument. Sarah's eyes softened with empathy. That's emotional neglect, Lily. It's not just you. You deserve to be heard and understood. You deserve someone who will make the effort to connect with you. Lily exhaled heavily. I know. And it's not just the lack of communication, it's his attitude. He'll make plans without even asking me if I'm okay with them. He'll invite his friends over without considering that I might be tired from work or Just want a quiet evening. I feel like I'm not even a part of the equation anymore. What does he say when you confront him about that? Sarah asked. He acts like it's not a big deal, Lily said, her frustration boiling over. He says things like, it's just a few friends, or why are you making such a big deal out of this? It's like my feelings don't matter. Sarah's expression grew more serious. Lily, you can't keep bottling this up. It's clearly affecting you, and it's not fair that he's dismissing your emotions like this. Lily leaned back in her chair, looking up at the ceiling as if searching for answers. I've tried so many times, Sarah. I've tried being patient, understanding, giving him space, but nothing changes. He keeps making me feel like I'm the problem. And the worst part is, I've started believing him. Sarah shook her head. Don't. This isn't your fault, Lily. A marriage is supposed to be a partnership, and you're being left to carry the emotional burden alone. That's not right. Lily's eyes welled up with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. I don't know what to do anymore. I love him, Sarah. I really do. But I can't keep living like this. Sarah reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on Lily's. You have every right to want more from your relationship. Love isn't supposed to feel this lonely. Lily gave a weak smile, appreciating her friend's support. I just don't know how to fix it. It feels like we're stuck in this cycle, and no matter how hard I try, nothing changes. Maybe it's time for a serious talk, Lily, Sarah suggested. And I mean serious. Lay everything out on the table. Tell him exactly how you feel, without holding back. Lily sighed. I've thought about that. But what if he doesn't listen? What if he just brushes me off again? Then you'll have to think about what's best for you, Sarah said gently. You deserve to be happy, Lily. You deserve someone who sees you, who respects you, and who makes an effort to connect with you. Lily nodded, though the thought of confronting John filled her with anxiety. I'll try. I'll talk to him again, but if nothing changes, I don't know, Sarah. I'm scared of what that might mean. Sarah squeezed her hand. Whatever happens, you're not alone. I'm here for you, no matter what. Lily smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Thank you, Sarah. That means the world to me. Lily sat on the couch that evening, staring at her phone, waiting for John to come home. Her heart raced with anticipation. She had decided that tonight would be the night she had the conversation she'd been avoiding for so long. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when her heart was breaking. The door clicked open and John walked in, dropping his keys on the table and heading straight for the kitchen without even glancing in her direction. Lily clenched her fists, trying to steady her nerves. She had to do this. John, she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned, raising an eyebrow. Yeah? We need to talk. John sighed, already sensing where this was going. Not this again, Lily. I just got home. Can't we do this some other time? Lily shook her head, standing her ground. No, John. We can't keep pushing this aside. We need to talk about our marriage. He rubbed his temples in frustration. What now? You're upset about something I did again? It's not just one thing, John. It's everything. I feel like I'm not even a part of your life anymore. You make decisions without me. You dismiss my feelings. And I'm tired of being the only one trying to make this work. John rolled his eyes. You're overreacting again. I work hard to provide for us, and all you do is complain. Lily felt a surge of anger rise within her. This isn't about money, John. This is about respect, about being seen and heard. I feel like you don't even care about me anymore. John's expression softened for a moment, but then he quickly brushed it off. You're being dramatic, Lily. Things aren't that bad. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. They are to me, John. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what else to say. There was a long pause as John stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. Finally, he sighed. Fine. What do you want me to do? I want you to listen to me, to actually listen and try to understand how I feel. I want you to make an effort, John. I can't do this alone. He looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. I'll try, he muttered. Lily wasn't sure if he meant it, but at least it was a start. Lily watched John's face, hoping to see some spark of recognition, some sign that he understood the gravity of what she was saying. But his posture remained distant, defensive, as though this was yet another argument he was obliged to sit through. She had heard, I'll try before, too many times, and every time it turned out to be empty words. John, she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady, this isn't just about trying for a few days and then going back to how things were. I need you to really be here with me. I need us to work on this together. He gave a slight shrug, his eyes darting to his phone, which vibrated on the kitchen counter. The moment felt fragile, like it could break apart at any second. I don't know what else you expect from me, Lily, he muttered. I'm doing the best I can. Are you? Lily's voice was stronger now, a mix of hurt and frustration. Because it doesn't feel like it. You come home late, you don't talk to me, and when I try to open up, you brush me off. I'm not asking for perfection, John. I'm just asking for you to care. John finally looked at her, really looked at her, and for a brief moment, Lily saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Regret. But as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. You make it sound like I'm some kind of monster, he said, his tone defensive again. I go to work, I pay the bills, I don't cheat on you. Isn't that enough? Lily felt her heart sink. Is that all you think marriage is? Paying bills and not cheating? What about love, John? What about respect? What about actually being partners in this life? John shifted uncomfortably. Look, I know I've been busy, okay? But it's not like I'm out there having fun. I've got a lot on my plate, too. You think it's easy dealing with work stress all the time? Lily closed her eyes for a moment, trying to rein in her emotions. She didn't want this to turn into another blame game. I get that you're stressed. I really do. But that doesn't mean you can just shut me out. We're supposed to lean on each other, not ignore each other when things get tough. John's expression softened slightly, but there was still a wall between them. I guess I didn't realize it was bothering you this much. It is, John. It's breaking me. I feel like I'm screaming, but you can't hear me. Silence hung in the air between them, heavy and uncomfortable. John rubbed the back of his neck, clearly unsure of what to say next. He had never been good with emotional conversations, and Lily knew that. But this time, she couldn't let him retreat. I need more from you, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I need you to be present, to care about us. If you don't, then I don't know how we can keep going like this. John looked down at the floor, his jaw clenched. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost defeated. What if I don't know how? Lily blinked, taken aback. What do you mean? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know how to be that guy, Lily. The one who always knows the right thing to say, the one who's... emotionally available, or whatever you want to call it. I've never been good at that stuff. Lily's heart softened, but only slightly. She could hear the vulnerability in his words, but vulnerability alone wasn't enough to fix their problems. You don't have to be perfect, John. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm just asking you to try, really try, to connect with me. I need to feel like you care about me and this marriage. He nodded slowly, though he still seemed unsure. I don't know if I can change overnight. I'm not asking you to change overnight, she said, her voice gentle now. But I need to see that you're willing to put in the effort. I can't keep doing this alone. John's eyes met hers, and for the first time in what felt like forever, there was a crack in his armor. He looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally, as though the weight of their issues had finally settled on his shoulders. Okay, he said after a long pause. I'll try. Lily exhaled slowly, the tension in her body easing just a little. Thank you, she whispered, though the road ahead still seemed uncertain. The following days were tentative, like walking on eggshells. John tried in his own awkward way to be more present. He came home a bit earlier, asked her about her day more often, even helped with the dishes without being asked. But the changes felt forced, like he was going through the motions rather than genuinely trying to reconnect. Lily appreciated the effort, but something still felt off. She wanted to believe that things could get better, but the emotional distance between them hadn't truly closed. It was as though they were acting out a role, but the love and intimacy they once shared had faded into the background. One evening, about a week after their conversation, they sat on the couch watching TV. John's hand rested on his phone, his eyes flicking to the screen every few minutes. Lily watched him out of the corner of her eye, her heart heavy with the realization that nothing had really changed. John, she said quietly, turning off the TV, we need to talk again. He sighed, leaning back into the couch. What now? It's not working, Lily said, her voice cracking. You said you'd try, but it still feels like you're not really here with me. I don't know how much longer I can do this. John frowned, clearly frustrated. I'm doing what you asked. I'm trying, aren't I? You're trying, but it doesn't feel real, John. It feels like you're just going through the motions because you have to, not because you want to. He ran a hand over his face, clearly exasperated. What more do you want from me, Lily? I want you to want this to work, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I want you to want to connect with me, to care about our marriage as much as I do. Right now, it feels like you're just putting in the bare minimum to keep me from leaving. John didn't respond right away. He stared at the ceiling, his face hard to read. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. I don't know if I can be that person you need me to be, Lily. Lily felt her heart shatter at his words. She had been afraid of this, but hearing it out loud still hurt more than she could have imagined. What are you saying, John? He sat up, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I'm saying maybe we're not right for each other anymore. Maybe we've grown apart and neither of us wants to admit it. Lily felt tears spring to her eyes, but she blinked them back, refusing to cry in front of him. So, that's it? You're giving up on us? I'm not giving up, John said, his voice soft but firm. But I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to be the husband you need. Lily swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. I didn't want it to come to this, John. I didn't want to believe that we couldn't work through this together. John looked at her, his expression conflicted. I didn't either, but maybe we're just too different now. Maybe we're both holding on to something that's already gone. Lily's heart ached at his words, but deep down, she knew there was some truth to them. She had fought so hard to save their marriage, but maybe she had been fighting for something that no longer existed. I don't want to lose you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. John reached out, taking her hand in his. I don't want to lose you either. But maybe it's time we both admit that things aren't working. Maybe it's time we stop hurting each other and let go. Tears filled Lily's eyes as she looked at him, the man she had once loved with all her heart. The man who had been her partner, her best friend, but who now felt like a stranger. She didn't want to let go, but maybe holding on was only causing more pain. Maybe, she whispered, her heart breaking. They sat in silence for a long time, their hands still entwined, knowing that the hardest decision was yet to come. Lily sat there in silence, her hands still in John's, feeling the weight of the words they had exchanged. The pain was almost unbearable, like a slow, suffocating pressure on her chest. She had imagined this moment in her head many times, but now that it was happening, it felt surreal. John's grip on her hand was firm, but it wasn't enough to bridge the emotional gap between them. She could feel the distance, the invisible wall that had been built brick by brick over the years. The realization that they had reached the end of the line was settling in, and it terrified her. I thought we'd be able to fix this, she finally whispered, her voice trembling. I thought we'd find a way to go back to how we used to be. John sighed, his eyes looking tired and resigned. I did too, Lily, but I don't think we can. I don't know if there's a way back from this. Lily pulled her hand away gently, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. How did we get here? We used to be happy, John. We used to laugh and talk for hours, and her voice cracked as she trailed off. What happened to us? John leaned back, rubbing his hands over his face as though he too was searching for an answer. I don't know. Life, maybe. We got caught up in work and routines and everything else, and somewhere along the way we just stopped trying. I guess we stopped seeing each other. Lily nodded, understanding but not accepting it. But that's the thing, John. We stopped trying, but why didn't we see it sooner? Why didn't we fight harder? John shrugged, his gaze distant. I think we did in our own way. But maybe it wasn't enough. The silence between them was thick with unsaid emotions, with memories of what used to be. They both knew that their love hadn't disappeared overnight. It had been a slow, quiet unraveling, so subtle that neither of them realized how far they had drifted until it was too late. Do you think we'll regret this? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She was scared of the answer, scared of what the future might look like without him. Do you think we'll look back one day and wonder if we should have tried harder? John looked at her, his eyes soft but tired. Maybe, I don't know. But right now, all I feel is tired, Lily. I'm tired of us fighting, of pretending everything is okay when it's not. I'm tired of feeling like we're just going through the motions. Lily swallowed the lump in her throat. So what now? John took a deep breath and looked around the room that had once been filled with their laughter, with their shared moments, with love. I think maybe we need some time apart. Time to figure out if this is really what we want. Maybe space will help us see things clearer. The idea of being apart from John hit her like a punch to the gut. She had never imagined a life without him, even in their worst moments. But now, as much as it hurt, she couldn't deny that something had to change. They couldn't keep living in this cycle of half-hearted efforts and unspoken resentment. "Do you think that's what we need?" she asked, her voice barely holding steady. John nodded slowly. "I think it's the only thing that might give us a chance to either fix this or to let go." Lily closed her eyes, feeling the sting of tears she had been trying to hold back. The thought of being apart from him was terrifying. But staying like this, stuck in a relationship that no longer brought them joy, was suffocating her. Maybe John was right. Maybe space would help them see things more clearly. "Okay," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Maybe some time apart will help." John exhaled, and for the first time that night, he looked truly conflicted. "I don't want to lose you, Lily, but I don't want us to keep hurting each other either." "I don't want to lose you either," she said, her voice shaking. "But I can't keep living like this. It's breaking me." They sat there, two people who had once been madly in love, now facing the heartbreaking reality that love alone wasn't enough to fix what had broken between them. The space between them felt like a chasm, one that neither of them knew how to cross. Over the next few days, the house felt quieter than usual. John had packed a few things and moved into a hotel for the time being. They hadn't decided on anything permanent yet, but the temporary separation was like a test to see if the distance would help them understand whether they could truly work things out or if they were beyond repair. Lily found herself wandering through the empty house, her heart aching with the silence. She missed John's presence, even if it had been distant lately. She missed the familiarity of their life together, even if it had been strained. But at the same time, she felt a strange sense of relief. There was no more tension, no more walking on eggshells, waiting for the next argument. The silence, though painful, was also a kind of peace. She spent hours thinking about their relationship, about the love they had shared, the moments that had brought them together, and the ones that had driven them apart. She thought about the ways she had tried to fix things, the conversations that had gone nowhere, the nights she had cried herself to sleep, wondering what had happened to the man she had married. But she also thought about her own role in their downfall. She had been so focused on trying to get John to change, to be the husband she needed, that she hadn't stopped to consider her own actions. Had she been too demanding? Had she failed to see his struggles in the midst of her own pain? Had she pushed him away with her constant need for validation and connection? The truth was, they had both played a part in the slow unraveling of their marriage. It wasn't just John's emotional distance that had driven them apart. It was the accumulation of small, unspoken resentments, the unmet expectations, the slow erosion of their ability to truly see and understand each other. Meanwhile, John sat alone in his hotel room, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts he couldn't quiet. The silence was suffocating in its own way, but it also forced him to confront the truth he had been avoiding for so long. He missed Lily. He missed the way they used to be, the way they could talk about anything and everything, the way she made him feel like he was the most important person in the world. But he also knew that the version of himself he had become wasn't someone she could continue loving the way she deserved. He hadn't been fair to her. He had shut her out. built walls around himself, and in doing so, he had let their marriage slowly fall apart. He hadn't listened to her when she needed him to, hadn't been the partner she needed in their most vulnerable moments. But now, sitting alone in this sterile hotel room, he felt the weight of his mistakes more than ever. The realization that he might lose her forever gnawed at him, and for the first time in a long while, he truly wondered if there was a way to fix what had broken between them. Days turned into weeks, and the separation continued. Lily and John spoke occasionally, but their conversations were brief, awkward. They hadn't made any decisions about the future, and the uncertainty hung over them like a dark cloud. One evening, as Lily sat on the couch, flipping through old photo albums, she found herself lingering on the pictures of their early days together. The laughter, the joy, the love, it was all so evident in those photos. They had been so happy once. How had they lost that? Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and she picked it up, seeing John's name on the screen. "Hey," she answered, her voice quiet. "Hey," John replied. There was a pause, then he added, "I was wondering if we could meet up. Just to talk." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "Yeah, I think that would be good." They met at the same cafe where they had shared so many moments before. The air between them was thick with tension, but beneath it, there was also something else. Hope, perhaps. John sat across from her, looking more tired than she remembered. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, his voice low. "About us. About what went wrong." Lily nodded, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her napkin. "Me too." "I know I wasn't the husband you needed me to be," John continued, his voice laced with regret. "I shut you out when I should have been there for you. I didn't listen when you tried to tell me how much you were hurting. I'm sorry, Lily. I really am." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, but she blinked them away. "I'm sorry, too. I think I pushed too hard sometimes. I didn't see what you were going through because I was so focused on my own pain." John shook his head. "You were right to push, though. I should have been better. I want to be better, Lily. I don't want to lose you." Lily looked at him, her heart aching with the raw honesty in his words. "I don't want to lose you either. But we can't go back to how things were, John. We have to find a new way to be together, a better way." John nodded, his eyes full of a determination she hadn't seen in a long time. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I want to fight for us, for our marriage." Lily's heart swelled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I want that too, but it's going to take time. We have to really work on this together." "I know," John said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "But I'm ready this time. I'm ready to be the husband you deserve." Lily squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch, the connection that had been missing for so long. "Then let's do it. Let's fight for this." And for the first time in a long while, they both believed that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The weight of the past weeks still lingered between them, but as John's hand rested in Lily's, there was a flicker of something that had been absent for a long time: hope. It wasn't a grand, sweeping feeling of certainty, but more like the soft glow of a candle in the dark, fragile, yet undeniably there. They sat in the cafe for what felt like hours, not always speaking, but letting the silence between them feel less like a void and more like a pause, a reset. Every few minutes, John's thumb would gently rub the back of Lily's hand, as though he was reassuring both of them that he wasn't going to let go this time. It was a small gesture, but It meant the world to her. So, where do we start? John asked finally, breaking the stillness between them. Lily thought about the question for a moment. It wasn't like there was a magic solution. No quick fix or sudden change was going to mend the broken pieces of their relationship. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like they were standing on opposite sides of an impassable chasm. They were on the same side, looking forward. I think we start by being honest with each other, she said. Really honest. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it hurts. John nodded slowly, his gaze steady on her. I can do that. And I need to learn to listen better, too. Not just hear you, but really listen. Lily smiled softly, appreciating his willingness to acknowledge that. And I need to be patient. I know I can get frustrated when things don't change right away, but I have to accept that this is going to take time. John squeezed her hand a little tighter. It'll take time, but I'm in it for the long haul. They shared a small, bittersweet smile, both of them knowing that they had said similar things before. But this time, it felt different. It wasn't just about words. It was about actions. It was about making real changes, even if they were gradual. Over the next few weeks, John and Lily began their journey toward repairing their marriage. The separation wasn't permanent, but it had given them both the space they needed to reflect. John moved back home, but they set boundaries, dedicated time to talk, to reconnect, and to rebuild trust. At first, it was awkward. Their conversations felt stilted, as though they were still walking on eggshells, unsure of what to say or how to approach each other without slipping back into old patterns. But they kept trying. One evening, a few weeks after John had moved back, they sat on the couch together after dinner. The TV was on in the background, but neither of them was really watching it. Instead, they were wrapped in the warmth of a shared moment, something they hadn't felt in a long time. Do you remember the first time we met? John asked, turning to look at Lily. She smiled at the memory. Of course. You spilled coffee all over yourself trying to impress me. John chuckled, the sound light and genuine. I did, didn't I? I thought I was being smooth, but I ended up looking like an idiot. Lily laughed, feeling a wave of nostalgia wash over her. I thought it was adorable. You were so nervous, and I found it endearing. They both smiled at the memory, the easy laughter between them, a reminder of what they had once shared. It was a small moment, but it felt like a breakthrough, a sign that despite everything, they still had the ability to laugh together, to remember the good times without being overshadowed by the bad. I miss that, John said softly, his voice carrying a vulnerability that Lily hadn't heard in a long time. I miss us, Lily, the way we used to be. Lily nodded, her heart aching with the same sentiment. I miss us too, but I think we're starting to find our way back. John looked at her, his expression serious but hopeful. I'm really trying this time, Lily. I want to be the husband you need, the one I should have been all along. Lily reached over and took his hand, her fingers lacing through his. I see that, John, and I'm trying too. I think we're both learning how to be better for each other. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship continued to evolve. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of frustration, moments when old habits tried to creep back in, but they were learning to catch themselves before they spiraled. They were learning to communicate in a way that they hadn't before, not just about surface level things, but about the deeper issues that had caused the rift between them. They started going to couples counseling, something they had both been hesitant about in the past. At first, it was uncomfortable, sitting in a room with a stranger and airing their grievances. But as time went on, they found that it helped them see each other in a new light. It gave them tools to navigate the difficult conversations, to understand each other's needs and triggers. One session in particular stood out to Lily. "You've both talked a lot about feeling disconnected," the therapist said, her voice calm and measured. "But I wonder if part of that is because you're not seeing each other as individuals anymore. You've fallen into roles: husband, wife, provider, caretaker, and lost sight of who you are as people." Lily and John exchanged a glance, both of them taken aback by the observation. "I guess we have," John said slowly. "It's like we forgot that we're more than just those roles." The therapist nodded. "It's common in long-term relationships. The day-to-day responsibilities can take over, and before you know it, you're living side by side instead of together. But part of rebuilding your connection is remembering who you are as individuals. What do you each need? What makes you happy outside of your roles as partners?" Lily thought about that for a long time after the session. She realized that she had been so focused on fixing their marriage that she had forgotten to take care of herself, to find joy in the things that made her happy outside of being a wife. And she knew that John had likely felt the same way, burdened by the expectations he had placed on himself as a husband and provider. So they started making changes, not just in how they interacted with each other, but in how they lived their lives as individuals. John started taking more time for himself, pursuing hobbies he had long abandoned. He took up running again, something he had always loved but had stopped doing because of work. Lily, too, began rediscovering her passions: painting, reading, spending time with friends. It wasn't about distancing themselves from each other, it was about finding balance. They were learning that in order to be better partners, they needed to be whole individuals first. Months later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Lily and John sat on their porch, sipping coffee together. The sun was rising, casting a warm golden light over the yard. It was peaceful, and the kind of moment that used to feel rare, but now felt like a natural part of their routine. "I feel like we're in a better place now," John said, breaking the comfortable silence. Lily nodded, her heart full. "We are. We've worked hard for this." John smiled at her, a genuine, soft smile that made her heart skip. "I'm proud of us, Lily, for not giving up." She reached over and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Me too." They sat there for a while longer, watching the world wake up around them. It wasn't a perfect marriage, not by any means. There would always be challenges, moments of doubt, and the occasional argument. But they had learned how to weather those storms together. They had learned how to love each other in a deeper, more intentional way. As they sat there, hand in hand, they both knew that the road ahead would still have its ups and downs. But for the first time in a long time, they weren't afraid of the future. They weren't afraid of losing each other, because now they were truly fighting for each other. And that, Lily realized, was what love really was. Not perfection, not always easy, but a choice to keep showing up, to keep trying, to keep believing that the love they had was worth fighting for. As Lily and John sat on the porch, basking in the warmth of the rising sun, a sense of peace washed over them. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from things being perfect, because life rarely worked that way. but the peace that came from knowing they were moving forward together. They had been through the worst and somehow come out stronger on the other side. Lily looked at John, his face softened by the morning light, and felt a wave of gratitude. The man sitting beside her wasn't the same person he had been a few months ago. Distant, cold, closed off. Nor was he the man who had spilled coffee on himself the first time they met. All nerves and boyish charm. He was different now, as was she. They had both changed, grown, and evolved. And that was okay. They had learned to accept that change wasn't always a bad thing. In fact, it was necessary. Do you think we'll ever go back to how we were in the beginning? Lily asked, her voice quiet, almost thoughtful. John turned to look at her, his brow furrowing slightly. I don't think we can, he said honestly. But maybe that's a good thing. We've been through too much to go back to who we used to be. Lily nodded, her heart swelling with the truth of his words. She knew that the early days of their relationship, with all its excitement and infatuation, were gone. But what they had now was something deeper. It wasn't just about falling in love, it was about staying in love, about choosing each other every day, even when it was hard. I think I'm okay with that, she said after a moment, her lips curving into a small smile. I like who we're becoming. John smiled back, a soft, almost shy smile that reminded her of the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago. I like us too. They sat in silence for a while, sipping their coffee and watching the world wake up around them. The birds were chirping, the leaves rustling in the gentle breeze, and the sky was a brilliant shade of blue. It felt like a new beginning, one that wasn't based on trying to recapture what they had lost, but on embracing what they had now. After a while, John broke the silence. You know, he said, his voice thoughtful, I've been thinking about something, about how, even though we've been through so much, we're still here. We didn't give up. Lily smiled, feeling the weight of those words. No, we didn't. John shifted in his seat, turning to face her fully. And I want to keep not giving up. I want us to keep fighting for this. For us. Lily's heart skipped a beat, and she felt her eyes welling up with emotion. I do too, John. I really do. He reached out, taking both of her hands in his, and looked into her eyes. I'm not saying it'll always be easy. There'll still be hard days, and times when we get frustrated with each other. But I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul. I'll keep showing up for you. I'll keep choosing you. Lily felt tears spill over onto her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of hope, of love. I'll keep choosing you too, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Every day. John leaned forward and gently pressed his forehead against hers, his breath warm against her skin. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of all the promises they had made to each other over the years, and all the ones they were making now. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other, their foreheads touching as the morning sun climbed higher in the sky. It wasn't about grand gestures or declarations anymore. It was about the quiet, steady moments of love that held them together. Eventually, John pulled back slightly, a soft smile playing on his lips. So, he said, his voice teasing, what do you want to do with the rest of our day? Lily laughed, wiping the last of her tears from her cheeks. Honestly, I just want to spend it with you. Maybe we can take a walk, have lunch at that little cafe we used to love, and just be together. John grinned. That sounds perfect. They stood up, still holding hands, and walked back into the house. It was the same house where they had experienced so much pain and heartache, but now it felt different. It felt lighter, like the air had been cleared, and they could finally breathe again. As they went about their day, taking that walk, sharing lunch, and talking about everything and nothing, Lily couldn't help but feel a deep sense of contentment. It wasn't just about fixing their marriage or getting back what they had lost. It was about building something new, something stronger. By the time evening rolled around, they found themselves back on the porch, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the cool evening breeze carried the scent of autumn leaves. Lily leaned her head on John's shoulder, feeling his arm wrap around her. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the moment wash over her.